Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Thursday night live stream here at Quick Tech Solutions. We have a nice live stream in store for you this evening. I'm excited to have TVJAY from the TVJAY YouTube channel with us here tonight as my special guest. We are going to be discussing topics related to television broadcasting engineering. As you all know, or you may not know, TVJAY is a television broadcast engineer. So we're going to pick his brain on some topics that he deals with on a day-to-day basis. So that said, I want to thank you guys all for being here, spending a Thursday night with us. Make sure you have your beverage of choice, whether it be water, coffee, tea, soda, an adult beverage. You know, my beverage is always the Argentinian Malbec. So get yourself comfortable. Like I said, grab a beverage and relax, and I hope you enjoy the show. So before we actually bring Jay on, I'd like to go ahead and just say hello to a few of you. I was popping your chats up on the screen, so I'll just real quick give you a shout out. Doug Forrest, thank you for being here. Looking forward to the show myself. Appreciate you. David Grishko, nice to have you here in the house tonight. Capture the Concept, thank you all for joining. Jason's Lab, thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Bob Carpenter, welcome. Thank you for being here. And Bob, you should be able to moderate the chat tonight, I believe. Hey, Joe from Blue Iris, what's up? Yep, been looking forward to this myself all day as well. We have Jeremy with Practical IT here. I'm glad you made it, Jeremy. We will get the party started shortly. James Ridgway, hello. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. DJ Ware, greetings. Thank you for being here. Just want to give a special shout out to DJ Ware. Let everybody know he tried to help me get that server up and running last week. We spent almost 3 hours together on a Zoom call. And we covered that thing with a fine-tooth comb. Unfortunately, we were unsuccessful, but DJ, I do appreciate you, and I appreciate your time you gave me that day. So just wanted to give you a special shout out, and thank you so much for being here. Thank you, David. Yep, like the smash button, smash the like button. Strong wine. Anyway, Jason's Lab. I think I got everybody. Yep. All right, we're good to go. And so, without any further ado, let me bring Jay into the stream, and we'll get this party started. Hey, Jay.
Hi, everybody.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, good. I want to thank you. I want to start off by thanking you for agreeing to do this. I appreciate it. Ever since I was a kid, I was always infatuated with television and TV production and TV studios. We watched a lot of television as a kid growing up. There really, no comments, Joe, but there was really nothing much else to do back then. But in any event, we did spend a lot of Friday nights, Saturday nights, Sunday nights as a family watching television. And I was, as a young boy, I was always mesmerized with it. It was like, it was my Disneyland, you know. It was like, I always thought like, wow, the magic of TV. So for me, this is an exciting, special treat for me to be able to interview you here tonight. I always wanted to work in a TV studio. And then of course life got in the way and I took other paths, but here I am, you know, in my elder years, and I'm playing with a YouTube studio. So I guess you can kind of say I'm living out my childhood dreams, so to speak. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
But in any event, I want to thank you for being here. We got a nice crowd. We have 12 people and 15 likes, so that's pretty cool. And it's still early, so I hope more people will file in. But yeah, so we're going to talk to you tonight about a little bit about your career, a little bit about your experiences in television broadcasting. So I guess to get the party started, can you kind of tell us like what exactly is a TV broadcast engineer? Because I always see you wearing the shirt in your live streams. So
Yeah, well, I thank you for having me on. And actually, I was like you. I actually always wanted to be work in TV. My dad was a TV engineer, so that's how I got started. To answer your question, a TV engineer is basically somebody who is responsible for keeping the television station on the air and operating within, you know, the FCC mandated requirements and following certain rules, and basically making sure that the programming that you see or is scheduled that you can actually see. Um, Whether that's, you know, making sure that the, you know, generators run or the power's on, or making sure that the video has got closed captioning, or that there's the correct audio on there, or that there's two pairs of audio if you're doing, you know, SAP, which is still a thing these days, in case you didn't know that. So basically, it's basically keeping the station on the air, and that even means sometimes that you're responsible for security, or a plumber, or a copy repairman. It's kind of everything these days. Um, as we often sometimes will say, from toilets to transmitters, we do it all. Just depends on the day or depends on the hour.
so along with that, then I'm just curious because I know you dabble with tech and a lot on the side, and you do your Linux stuff and all that. So how much of IT is a part of your, you know, responsibility as an engineer, broadcast engineer? Is it a big part, or is there a whole separate IT team there? Or
Well, these days the lines between like traditional broadcast engineer and IT are blurred. Everything is a computer, and so um, you don't go a day without touching a computer, and most days you don't go a day without touching some kind of cable or whatever it is, you know, camera or whatever. So the line's very blurred these days. For 4 years, I was the IT manager at the station, and so I was in charge of all the computer systems. But even though I was the IT manager, I still got involved with transmitters and cameras and audio boards and switchers and all that stuff. And because everything has a network jack, and sometimes they have multiple network jacks, or in the case of my audio board at work, it's all IP based. So it's all Dante audio based. And so the whole thing's basically IT with some faders. I mean, that's how I look at it, at least. So there really is a blurred line there. Nobody does one thing these days. The staffs usually just don't allow for that. So in my department, there's four of us, or there was four of us. There's now three of us currently, but there will be 4 of us again. And 2 are your kind of traditional broadcast engineers, and 2 are more like IT centric, but we all do everything.
Cool. Thank you. Before we go on, Jay, I just wanted to mention, because I did forget to say it to everybody in the beginning, feel free to put your comments in the chat, put your questions in the chat, but we'll probably go back to the chat at the end of the video. We definitely want to get through the interview. We got some neat questions here for Jay, and hopefully he'll have all the answers for me. So I don't want you guys out there following us thinking we're ignoring the chat. We're just going to make it a point to address it towards the end of the stream. So hang in there with us. Okay. So Jay, you were saying that your dad was involved in broadcasting, and that's how you got involved. So you've been pretty much involved with it all your life as a kid. And so my question is, like, how long have you been involved in TV broadcasting? But really, I mean, as a child, your whole life, but as a professional working, how long?
At my current station, I've been there for 18 years. Before that, I worked at the competition for 1 year, and then I was in school during most of that time as well. So, or most of that early time. So I've been around television my whole life because my dad was an engineer at the local station here, the local PBS station, and he worked there for 43 years. So
Wow.
when I was born, they were doing this buy-in, this auction essentially, and I want to say within 48 hours, it may have been 24 hours, my dad is on TV saying that I was born. So I always kind of just joke that I was born into television because I literally my name was announced on TV within 24 hours, if not 48 hours on TV. I always went to the TV station as a kid. If my dad was working an odd schedule, my mom would take me up at night and drop me off, and I'd come home with my dad at 11 o'clock at night. When he did remotes, because they often did special remotes in the summertime, I would actually go on remotes with him. And I can remember working, next to the guys getting paid, and my dad
Right.
kind of joking, like, you're working harder than they are. And I don't know, 14, 15 maybe.
Yeah.
At one point, my dad put me on one of the big cameras for this remote. And so I got to run one of the cameras. My first ever on camera move, if you will, was, during the PBS, you've seen it where they say, hey, just take 5 minutes of your time. Please donate money. Pledge drives. That's what it's called. I did a pledge drive one time, and the director had me actually do a slow zoom and pan of the people answering the phones. And so that's my first actual, I didn't get credit for it, but of course, that's the first actual move I ever did on camera, or with a camera, I should say. So I grew up around it. I knew, there was never a day where I didn't know what the word or phrase master control meant, or production control, or what a camera was. I just always knew what those were. I knew, back in the day, that I couldn't call my dad at the top or bottom of the hour because my dad was rolling a break, commercial break.
Right.
So I, couldn't call my dad; he's busy. So, yeah, that's why I would say I've just naturally been around this my whole life. I went to school for this. I actually went to school part-time for 2 years because I got my job in television and was already working full-time before I even graduated.
Right.
So I actually went to school for 2 years part-time just to get that degree, but I was already working in the field. Like, I didn't need that degree anymore, but I wanted to finish it just because. And so there was never a doubt in my life, in my mind, what I wanted to do. I did actually try for 1 year to do something different in school, and I couldn't stand it. And so I actually did radio, on air DJ at a college radio station for a year
Oh, cool.
while I did this other thing in school. Hated it and said, you know what? I'm done. I'm going back. I'm going to TV, what I always wanted to do anyway. And jumped into a student organization in school and just took it and run with it, and ran that organization for 3 years. And then, was in school, and then got the job, and then changed stations, and worked my way up from entry level camera person all the way up to IT manager, and now I'm the interim head of technology. So,
Oh, wow. So even being involved as a young child, working, with your dad, helping him here and there in the studio, um, it didn't demystify the magic for you. You decided to continue on through, which I think is pretty cool. That's awesome. Hey, can you describe for us, like, give us an example of like what it's like in a day in the life of Jay Shell at the studio?
um,
That's a hard one. I know, Jay.
I guess the question is, what day is it, or what are we prepping for, or what are you getting ready for? I mean,
Just give us like, a regular day, without a big event coming up, because we're going to get to talking about something soon, but just a normal day, a regular Monday, Tuesday. What is it like, going to work, and what's the day involve?
okay. Well, I mean, most of the day starts usually with opening my email and seeing basically kind of what blew up overnight. You know, is there anything glaring that needs addressed? Is there somebody who can't do their job, or is there somebody who can't? Is a camera broke, or is the audio board needed fixed, or whatever it is. I mean, if it's mission critical, will call me, and I'm always on call. But generally, it's walk in, check your email, see what's a priority for the day. These days, I do a lot of conference calls, but you know, so that occupies my day. And then basically, it's a lot of break fix. The morning is basically break fix, like what's broken, what needs fixed. The afternoon's typically more project based, where I can think long term and work on certain projects, whether that's a remote we're doing, or um, new piece of gear we're getting, or whatever it is. So mostly emails in the morning, break fix, and then project based. Um, we don't get to do a lot of maintenance because we're almost always on the air doing newscast. I mean, we're always on the air, but when we do newscast at certain times of day, you really can't touch anything because you're in the middle of a newscast, and those are your high profile events. So our window to really only do software updates or reboots is in the afternoon. So most of the afternoon is software updates or rebooting machines or working on stuff that we can't do while the newscast is on the air. And we do 55 hours of news, I think it is, so a week.
Oh, wow.
So we do a lot of newscast.
Wow. Yeah, no, it sounds like it. So, well, thank you. Appreciate that. So, my next question is this. Speaking of projects, not so much a question, but it was a recent project that you've been involved in at the newsroom. And I've been following you on Facebook and watching the progress along with all the photos you've been posting and things like that. So, can you talk about the newsroom remodel? Is that something we're permitted to discuss online?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Um,
Um,
Go ahead.
so yeah, so basically, this newsroom has been there. I mean, since I started, it's kind of been refreshed, like I think once, but basically it was still the same um, bones, if you will, of this newsroom. And we've been asking for a new one for a while now, and we were fortunate enough to get one approved. And so uh, it got approved kind of late in the year, and so it was kind of a pinch to get it in. But we did a lot of work, and worked. The whole team came together. We did a lot of demo ourselves, and we pitched in where we could with the construction, and then um, did the wiring ourselves and whatnot. So we got it done before the deadline, which was December 21st or whatever it was. So we got it all done and it's the first comprehensive rebuild, if you will, of the newsroom in the station's history since it moved there in that building. Um, like I said, they did one remodel before, but then they did like a refresh. But this is actually like the first, like, we tore it down to the concrete. We tore down walls. We built new walls. Like, I mean, it was a complete overhaul of the newsroom space, which is where our news department of about 75 people work. So before there was 30 desks, maybe 33, I think it was. Now there's 40, 48, 44. I forget the exact number. So
Okay.
we added a lot more desk, um, and so that people are still sharing desk, but they're not, not everyone shares a desk anymore.
Now, what was the overall time frame from start to finish? Like when you started the demo to the time you moved people in, how long did that take you? And you're on schedule? Like I know you said you met the deadline, but what was the overall time frame?
Um, well, I don't remember the exact day we started demo. I feel like it was October. It was October 13th or whatever that Monday is.
Okay.
Um, we started demo in about like, or say early mid October. The construction and all that stuff had to be done by, and the furniture had to be in by the end of the year. And so we got that in, and then we spent the better part of like 2 weeks um, wiring up all the desk with network cables. And then people moved in January. Oh, it was early January. It was like January 16th, maybe.
Yeah,
We,
just
we
recently. Yeah.
yeah. So we moved our last person in actually yesterday.
And just to be clear, when you say newsroom, right? That's not your studio. That's not where your sets are. That's where your editors, your writers, and
Correct.
whatever.
This is not the thing you see on air. This is not the studio set or whatever. This is the newsroom where people's desks are. We will be adding cameras to this newsroom, so there will be shots that you will see, and there'll be things we'll be adding over time. But basically, this is where the producers, managers, reporters, photogs, directors, they all sit
Right.
to produce the newscast. And then when it's time for the newscast to happen, those crews go into the control room or to the set, and then that's what you see on air.
Cool. I mentioned earlier, I'm living out my childhood dream here, right? In my little YouTube studio, right? With my ATEM and, stuff like
Yeah.
that on a small scale compared to what you're doing. And I know how, just talking to other YouTubers, we're always talking about, okay, how are we going to upgrade? What are we going to do? Where are we going to go from here? Are we going to go 4K? Are we not going to go 4K? What cameras should we use? Future proofing, like we think about it at this level. So as far as on your level, like what type of future proofing when you're doing a remodel like this, right? What type of considerations do you take come into play as far as future proofing? Because it's probably not going to be now another remodel for quite some time. So you have to be forward thinking right when you're doing this. So can you
Yeah.
talk about that a little?
I mean, the basic thing what we were doing is we made sure every desk has 2 network jacks, and then every row of desk has both an over-the-air RF feed and a cable RF feed. And basically what we did. We also made sure that every desk has got a UPS powered circuit so that we can have power protection there.
Right.
But the biggest thing we did is basically we just made sure that every desk had 2 network jacks, one that we're currently using for a computer, and then one we could use for whatever. We don't really know what that is going to be yet, but we figured that each desk should get at least 2. And then in the center area, there's an assignment desk, and we pulled like 6 extra cables, I think it was, to there just because we didn't know what the future is going to bring. And the room is blanketed with 3 access points. So there's Wi-Fi coverage everywhere. There's 2 network jacks per desk. There's 2 different kinds of RF cables available nearby every desk. So that's what we did in terms of that. And there's conduit on the floor. I mean, we could, in theory, although it'd be awfully tight because the conduits are pretty full, but you could, in theory, pull more cable through if you wanted to.
Cool. Just as a side note, I'm just curious because you mentioned the 3 access points. What brand do they use in the studio, in the
Um,
newsroom?
they're Cisco.
Just Cisco? Okay. Yeah, I figured as much. I was just curious. All right, cool. I don't mean to put you on the spot now, but do you have any before and after pictures of the remodel, the newsroom?
Yeah, I could show you a couple of things here.
Cool.
So this one is this is kind of a before picture. The plexiglass was added for COVID. It's normally not there, but you can see it basically it's a bunch of desks and they're awfully close together, and it just looks kind of old and outdated as it was. And this studio or this newsroom was designed as both a newsroom and a studio space. So on the other end, we had this open space where there used to be set pieces. We used to do the 5 o'clock news from the newsroom, and the newsroom was the backdrop of the set. So in this old newsroom, there was a lot of space that was not being utilized. And so one of the redesign elements was to basically utilize all the space. And so what we did was we made 3 rows of desk with 10 desks per row. And these are all sit-stand desk. So they all move up. Everybody has 2 monitors, and everybody has their own storage space at their desk. And then in the center there, I believe I have a photo of it. Yeah. In the center here, there is what we call the assignment desk, which is that center area that's a circular shape. And that's where the managers sit, and they kind of, help run the newsroom and divvy up who's going to do what for the day. On the outside of that center area is where the reporters who kind of come and go sit. And then we also, we didn't have it before, was a conference room. And then we added an office. So we went from 2 offices to 3 offices, which is those things in the very back on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side where that couch is an actual green room for guests to come in and sit while, they wait to go on the air or they wait to be interviewed. We did not have a green room before either. So you took this time to add office space and add green room space. And so here you can see there's another row of desk over there, basically a closer shot of the assignment desk area. And then overhead, we actually hung monitors. What you see there on the top is the monitor mounts. And I believe I have a picture of it. Maybe not. So this is just a different view of the newsroom from the other end. You can see the green room off to the left-hand side. And then this is kind of the overall room. It's a very long rectangular space. So we kind of, obviously dictated the kind of design we could use, because there's not a whole lot of room, and those are all concrete block walls. So we weren't gonna tear any of those walls down because they're structural. And then this is a picture of the TVs.
Oh, nice.
As they are up there now. We have 8 TVs on the outside, and then we have 4 TVs on the inside for the managers to look at.
Just out of curiosity, what size are those TVs? Are they 83, 85 inch?
No, they're actually
pretty big.
They're only 55.
That's it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. They look tremendous on that ring.
Yeah, I mean, they're only 55-inch televisions. Like I said, there's 8 of them. And then you can see we put up there in the ceiling grid is the old lighting grid for the studio. We put new LED lights up there, and they're actually so bright that the newsroom people leave the lights dimmed because they're so bright if they actually are full. So kind of glad we put them on dimmers because they're awfully bright. And then here's just a picture of the construction, so you can see how we literally went down to dirt to put conduits in and run power and network cables correctly, so there's no overhead wires.
Nice.
And then you can see how we were framing up walls at the end there. And I tell you, it was a lot of work. We obviously hired it out, but to be in charge of it and to answer everyone's questions all the time was just kind of it was very busy. We'll just say that.
Very nice. Okay, it did turn out really, really nice.
Oh, I think I have one more picture.
Go ahead.
So here's the side by side from before to after, taken from the exact same spot.
Wow. Very nice. Good job.
Thank you.
Good job. Awesome. All right. We're going to switch gears now, my friend.
Okay.
Sunday's the big day, right?
Sunday is the big day.
So yeah, it's right around the corner. So I have a question for you. It's you're going to laugh when, you're going to be like, really, seriously? But, getting ready for a Super Bowl. I mean, I just watched a couple of weeks ago, you had I think you sent Joe and myself a link to the NFL, how they set up for game coverage. And that alone was mind blowing with the number of cameras and where they have cameras and all that. But in general, like coming up with the Super Bowl coming up and major broadcasts on a major network, What type of prep goes into an event like this? I mean, it's got to be like crazy planning.
Well, I think there's two parts to think about. There's the actual game broadcast on the network. We have nothing to do with that part, but I can tell you that they've already been on site based on some Facebook posts that I've seen for at least 7 days. I think by now, if not 8 or 9. So they've been on site for almost 2 weeks, or they will have been on site for 2 weeks. At the local level, which is what I'm familiar, used to and working on, is basically what happens if. I mean, the Super Bowl, for those who don't know, is the biggest television event of the year by far. There's more money spent on commercials in that one game than most people probably have in terms of income for the whole year. I think Fox is projected to get $600 million in commercial revenue in just the one game alone. Now that's the Fox network. That doesn't count my station or the station near you. That's just what the network's going to bring in is $600 million. So in all, you're talking over $1 billion in TV revenue in a 4-hour period. So basically what every company does is ask the stations who are airing the game, what happens if, so what happens if you lose your playout system? So I've had to come up with a whole secondary playout system to play out commercials in the event that our main playout server dies. What happens if you lose your transmitter? Well, last week we went out to the transmitter site, turned our backup unit on, and actually put it on the air to make sure that the backup transmitter would work in the event of a failure. The other thing is, what happens if you lose your STL link, which is a studio to transmitter link? It's what allows us to send video from our studio, which is not at the transmitter site, about 5 miles to our transmitter site, and then to where it gets broadcast from. So that's a very important link. What happens if that link goes down? Well,
Right.
I just spent a whole hour today testing a backup for that to make sure that if that link goes down, that the transmitter engineer can move one cable at the transmitter site and get us back on the air, hopefully within less than a minute.
Wow. So you answered. Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Ooh, just got shocked. So basically, it's basically what if this, and so you go through your whole chain from Fox Network. What happens if the Fox Network goes away? Well, we have sister stations in the company sending us programming, the same Fox Network programming on different paths. So I can change sources, I can change playout machines, I can change microwave paths, I can change transmitters. We had to make sure that the transmitter sites and the studio site has gas in the tank so we can fire up our generators in case we need to. So we've had to go through basically a what if scenario from start to finish. Now,
and this is happening all on the fly in the event of an issue.
Well, yeah, I mean, we do these things, we do these thought processes, we do these tests ahead of time. So then on Sunday, if it's halftime and all of a sudden we have a problem, we're not going, well, what if we do this? We already have it in place.
Right.
I will set up the backup path at 5:00. So therefore, when the game starts, the backup path's already been established. And again, it's just one cable change. The backup playout reel is going to have an operator who'll be rolling breaks as the game goes along with our master control operators. So both are rolling breaks in the event that the one dies, the other one can take over. So we do these things in real time and we prep for them so that when it happens, it's just the thought. It's like, oh, reaction, push the button, we go. There's no thought process involved. And the networks are doing this too, times 10, I'm sure, of what happens if this. Because if you remember, what was it? I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, the one Super Bowl, they lost power. And the trucks, the truck stayed up, I think it was, but the announcer booth went out or lost power. And so like, what happens if that happens? And so you work through all these ahead of time so that you're not guessing on when it comes, when it actually happens. And hopefully it never happens. So you've wasted, hours of work. But if something does happen, you're ready to go.
Yeah. So it sounds like in addition to what the major networks are doing, the local affiliates all around the country then are busy, to say the least. So,
Oh yeah, I mean, we I've been working on this for a couple days now. We've had conference calls starting 2 weeks ago, I think it was, and basically making sure that, there's a whole checklist. What happens if this? Do you have this? Have you thought of this? I mean, down to who's bringing the food, because
right,
we don't want people going out to go get food, because in theory they could get a car crash. You could get in a car crash just going across, the street to get food. So
right,
food has to be delivered so that the people don't leave the building once they get inside the building, because there's no
right,
reason to go out and risk that. So I mean, you're
right.
thinking everything down to the, who's bringing food.
Hey, I was thinking along those lines even today. I was going to go out on a motorcycle ride, but then I said, well, no, I better not, because I have a show tonight with Jay. So to some degree, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, but no, pretty cool. Thank you. Appreciate that. So who you rooting for?
Honestly, I mean, my wife's a big Patrick Mahomes fan. Um, I'd probably root for him. I'm not a big Eagles fan. I think the Eagles will probably win if I had to, put money on it.
Right.
But I wouldn't mind seeing Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs win.
Cool. Yeah, I don't have a preference. We're just having a few folks over and gonna put some finger foods together, some drinks. And my first year, I went into a box, and I have no idea how that works. My brother-in-law was like, "You want to buy a couple of boxes on a grid?" I was like, "Yeah, sure."
Oh,
No,
squares.
yeah, the squares. I have no
Yeah.
idea, so whatever. Sure.
Yeah, those are
Whatever.
interesting.
But hey, awesome. Thank you so much. Um, let's switch gears.
Okay.
Let's talk about ATSC 3.0, aka Next Gen TV. So there's been a lot of talk recently. It's been the buzz. I think at the Consumer Electronics Show, of course, all the vendors are out there with their ATSC 3.0 tuners and this, that, and everything. I know Orlando rolled out. They're now 3.0. I know it's coming to the other major cities, in phases. So all that said, can you kind of talk to us about ATSC, what it is, and the 3.0, how it differs from the current standard, which is 1.0, and like what does that mean for the average homeowner? We have to run out and now buy new TV sets. I'm a cord cutter. I cut the cord back in 2016. I have an ATSC 1.0 over-the-air DVR. Now, do I have to go out and get a 3.0 tuner? I mean, what's your take on all this?
Yeah, so ATSC 1 is the current standard that we all switched to in 2009, and that was mandated by the government. ATSC 3 is an optional standard that TV stations are adopting. There is no government mandate. It's not like it's going to happen tomorrow or the next day or whenever. I mean, it could, but currently there is no federal mandate to switch to it. So that's very important that, we're not going to buy new TVs tomorrow. We're not going to force you to buy converter boxes like before. What is happening is essentially each market is getting one station, usually either the like it'll be like the CW or the what used to be UPN or WB affiliate, usually a smaller affiliate who will decide to be the lighthouse, if you will. And so those switch to ATSC 3. And what will happen is a channel sharing agreement will happen where the other affiliates in the market or the other stations in the market will all give up space and carry one channel from that new station that's ATSC 3, meanwhile giving up their one channel to go over there. So that way, if you buy a TV or you buy an HD home run that does ATSC 3, you have something to watch on ATSC 3, but then you also have the old ATSC 1 standards. So basically ATSC 3, and there was a version 2, by the way. Version 2 came out. It didn't really work, so they didn't go with it. It was designed for mobile uses or handheld TVs, and it didn't work. So ATSC 3 is all IP, and it is designed with better encryption or better modulation techniques. So it's more reliable. It's going to be more robust. It also offers some flexibility. So we can change the signal, or we can actually broadcast two different signals, a very robust but low quality signal that you could get for your cell phones or for your TV viewers who are out away from the transmitter site, like 60 miles. It also offers the ability to do a higher bit rate one for, like, say, those with good reception, where you in theory could get 4K. That's a standard that will be in this, is possible. But I would bet you a lot of money that most stations will not go 4K. What they're going to do is they're going to allow us to convert all of those sub channels. So you may have a 27.5 or whatever it is,
Right.
1 through 5 on your local station. Well, right now, 1 is HD and 4 are SD. This ATSC3 standard will allow it to be all HD. So you have 5 HD channels. To go to 4K, you'd basically have to either eliminate one channel or go down to like maybe 2 channels. And the economics just don't work there, only
Right.
going back to one channel. So what I see happening is basically every channel going HD, whether that's 720, 1080, which also they offer now 1080p, so you could broadcast in 1080p as well. And they use the new HEVC codec, I believe. So we can broadcast HD in like half the space we currently do. And so
Okay.
that'll allow us to cram more HD channels in. I guess in theory, if you wanted to do an event like the Super Bowl in 4K for one night, you could. But really, I don't see that happening, at least on your average day in, day out.
I was going to say, like, in the next 5 to 10 years, would you say it would become commonplace?
No, I really don't. I think
Hmm.
ATSC 1 is 19.39 megabits per second. So we can carve that up however we want to carve it up, whether that's one station in good HD or whether that's 8 channels in SD. However you want to carve it up, you can choose how to carve it up. ATSC 3, from what I'm seeing, because I don't have it in my market, so I don't really know yet,
Okay.
is somewhere like 26 megs. So you're getting an increase of 5 megs, and you're getting better modular encoding schemes like HEVC. But to do 4K, you still need, what, 15, 18 maybe? And that's just going to kill most of that signal. So like I said, you could probably do a 4K transmission, but you're going to give up those sub channels. And a little insider knowledge, those sub channels help pay the bills. So each of those sub channels is a revenue generator. So that's why you might see stations with 8 sub channels, because each one helps pay the bills. So you're not going to give up your 8 sub channels for that one 4K signal,
Right.
because it doesn't make sense economically. So, well, they're going to be HD. Like, that's why I'm saying maybe one station might go 4K here, or you go to 4K for like one event. But I just do not see it happening outside of like a singular event, or a special broadcast here and there. I just don't see it happening.
It's interesting. Yeah. When you listen to people who attend the, consumer electronic shows, and then, all the vendors there and all the marketing, and then you listen to a guy like you who's in the trenches, right? I mean, it's just like extreme. Because marketing is marketing. Like, you know what I'm saying? And of course they're going to push to sell their products, but no,
I mean,
I
lots of things are possible, and one of the things that they have talked about, and I guess are demoing in some places, is like a paid subscription service. Can you imagine paying $4 a month for ESPN over the air, or insert your favorite cable channel here? I mean, it could be whatever. So I think a lot of people will try things. I mean, definitely people are going to try lots of different things, but in the short term, I don't see it changing much other than all the channels going HD. And if you're going to tell me that if I sacrifice some quality, I can get a super robust signal out to every viewer, no matter if they're using a cell phone or an antenna and a 85-inch television, I'm going to go that route every day. I'm going to want my TV signal to be in many people as possible, in front of as many people as possible. And if that means sacrificing 4K and stay in HD, I mean,
You'll do it. Yeah.
That's what we're going to do. It's just 4K does not pay the bills. And you've heard me talk about this before, and YouTubers and all this stuff. Like 4K does not make the difference, whether that's 720p or 1080i or 4K. An ad's going to roll for the same price. Doesn't matter.
Right. So it's interesting that you mentioned ESPN, because that's going to work out to be a nice segue into my next question.
Okay.
So it's not really a question. Well, it's a statement and a question. You sent us, when I say us, I mean myself and Joe, you sent us an article last week about ESPN pulling off a completely cloud-based production of a men's collegiate basketball game, where the cameras were on site, but the entire production team the whole production was managed in the cloud. Well, that's like super cool. I like when I hear stuff like that, I get like, chills. I mean, we did similar stuff here with SRT, right? And right. And I did something for Joe last year where he sent the camera streams to me and I switched it all here for him. But I mean, on a large scale like that, to cover like a sporting event, just blows my mind. Do you think, well, first of all, what's your take on it? And do you see that this is the future direction that live broadcasts are going to take? Do you see it becoming all cloud-based in the future and no need for production trucks on site? I mean, is that where this is going, or you think it'll just be a balance of the two?
I think it'll be mixed. I do not see broadcasters putting all their eggs in one basket like the cloud. I do see, in the article we were talking about, I believe they were doing 4 cameras. 4 cameras, a couple microphones in the cloud. Okay, that's, one thing. If it allows the broadcaster to get a game in that they wouldn't have gotten in normally, I think it's great. And I think that it will be an avenue for some people to pursue. But that's 4 cameras. It was I don't even remember what division it was in, but it was aired on ESPN3. So it was a internet only broadcast of a college game.
I think it was the AC-10 conference, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Yeah.
The Super Bowl, by, example, is hundreds of cameras. I mean, probably like over 100, I'm guessing. $600 million in ad revenue. Some of those cameras are 4K, being recorded in 4K and zoomed in on, things. You're talking 80 plus channels of replay. I don't see, even in 10 years, how that goes to a cloud-based only thing. I mean, the amount of bandwidth required to do that alone, I just don't even see it happening, because you basically have to take the entire pipe that the stadium has and devote it to TV. I mean, I don't see the cloud. I see the cloud being an option for some things. I actually did demo a all cloud production service from a company, and while it was cool, it had some cool features. I mean, kind of like with StreamYard right now, which is what we're using here.
Yeah.
It has some cool things. It wasn't fast or good enough to do sports, and I just questioned the reliability of it. And the question always becomes, like with any cloud thing, is whose computer is it, and who are you paying, and where is that computer? Because if you can host it yourself in a computer or use a computer to do it, why are you paying someone else to do it? And I mean, quite frankly, we've all seen the outages. I mean, when AWS goes down on the East Coast, everyone knows about it. When Facebook goes down, everyone knows about it. Like, outages happen like that. Not to say that they don't happen on site either, but when they're on site, you're taking one game down. If you take the cloud down, you might take down your entire lineup of football games or basketball games that afternoon. So I just don't see them putting all their eggs in one basket. I know Fox is doing some cool things with remote technology where there's less people on site. There's still a production truck, but they're sending the feeds back to their own facility that they own. And those are called REMIs, or that's the usual name for them. but basically the equipment's sitting on site, but the operator's sitting in, Tempe, Arizona, or wherever. They own the whole thing. It's not cloud-based. It's their own cloud and their own data center, if you will.
Okay.
I see that happening a lot because travel expenses are expensive. Food cost, airline travel, hotel stays, and your operator only gets to do one game that day. So if you could outsource, or if you outsource, if you could move those replay operators or graphics people to a control room across the country, and they could do 2 games in one day, well, then now you've doubled your output and you didn't incur any more cost. So there are certain positions that I think will go cloud-based, but you're still gonna need a truck on site to encode the video. You may still want a certain person on site to just troubleshoot issues. You may still want, the audio operator on site if there's, if you're doing a symphony, and you have 64 channels of audio, well,
Right.
it's a lot easier to mix that on site than it is in the cloud. So, I mean, I think depending upon the production, it's I always say it's the right tool for the right job. So if a cloud-based production works for 4 cameras and that's what you need because otherwise that game won't get covered, I say absolutely do it. But will the Super Bowl ever be cloud-based? I don't think so, but that's just my opinion.
That's an interesting take. Question. So, and I know you covered this on one of your live streams a couple months ago when you were talking about the production trucks and how the venues hook up to them. So I'm assuming that the venues, stadiums, arenas, whatever they are, they all have their own camera gear and all the cabling is all internal, and then they just hook up to the truck, the network truck that whatever pulls up for whatever the event is that day. Because, like, for example, one day I was a New York Met fan, all right, for years. One day, they're broadcasting from the stadium on one network. The next day, they're broadcasting on another network. Obviously, all the cameras and everything are in place. My question is, do the networks, when they show up with their production trucks, do they actually use just the venue's equipment, or do they bring in some of their own as well? Because I'm thinking like WWE for example, right? Half of what sells their shows is the camera angles and the shots, and a lot of times I don't think the venues are going to have everything to pull off a WWE show. So I'm imagining like WWE's bringing in like their own gear as well as using the venue. Am I correct in thinking that, or?
No, I mean, unfortunately, for WWE, I think they bring all their stuff in. I've been to a broadcast before. They bring all their stuff in on their own trucks. They don't use anything from the venue, at least when I was there.
Wow.
They roll their own SAT truck in. They do their own stuff. Like they bring all their stuff in. When I've done football or basketball games, we brought our own stuff in. Now, you share certain resources like maybe the clock cam, or you share certain resources with the stadium. But a lot of times, at the least professional level, they're 2 separate productions because, let's say the under the basket camera, for basketball might work for the network, but the one right next to it, once they go to commercial, the network guy gets a break. The other camera has to go find, the people in the stands doing funny things. So you're really doing 2 different productions there. You're doing an in-stadium one and then a broadcast one, and they want different things. So there definitely is some sharing of video. Like there are tie lines that, allows the truck to see the in-house video or vice versa. But you're really bringing in your own stuff because your focus and your attention is different. So they don't actually share a lot of stuff between the venue and the broadcaster, at least what I've seen. Now at the smaller level, like my local hockey team, it's the same production, same people, because it's so small, they can't afford to have 2 different sets. So at the smaller level, it's the same production crew doing both, and they just, when they cut the commercial, they do the kiss camera or whatever it is, and then as soon as they
Right,
come,
right.
back, they're okay. We're back to broadcasting. But any NBA, MLB, whatever it is, they bring their own stuff in. And in fact, on some productions I've heard, I've never actually been on one before, but I've actually heard this happen. You might have two teams or two broadcasters there with all their own same stuff, like their own, outfield camera or infield cameras. Like they'll have two of everything because there'll be two different broadcasts. And it's not uncommon for one broadcaster to have the game Friday night, pull out, and the next one pull in the next day and bring all their new stuff in, run the same basic cables, run the same setup, but it's completely different gear because the gear goes with the truck. So
Okay.
if you're bringing in the truck, that gear goes on that truck. You don't cross trucks, you don't cross everything like that. Basically, the gear comes in, it gets unpacked from the truck, it gets used, it goes back on the truck leaves. So even when you're just switching trucks out, you're tearing down a lot of the stuff at the same time because it goes with the truck.
That's wild because I just figured because yeah, I mean, that's crazy because I
It is.
just figured because they can, switch so quickly like that, that there's no way that they're loading in the gear from on their own, like that. They got to be, in my head, they got to be using, the venue's cameras and gear, but like,
Well, but I will say, like, a lot of the venues are pre-wired. So, I did one event in Cincinnati where the truck pulled up outside and like 10 feet that way was a big IO panel that then went in the arena. Now, I mean, it was like a 3-minute walk to get into even up to the arena. So, I mean, the truck
okay.
was that far away that it took you several minutes to just get to the door of the arena. And so we're far away now. All we are doing is running cables from the truck to that IO panel, going inside, and we're running like a cable from the camera to a wall jack. So
Okay.
we're using the wiring that's already in place,
The
but we're bringing our own
infrastructure.
camera. Yeah, we're bringing our own cameras and we're bringing our own trucks in.
Gotcha. Thank you. That was always something I wondered about. I appreciate that. So, and on that note, I'm looking at the timer. We are 20 seconds away from meeting Joe's minimum. But this has been awesome. I am going. By the way, I put the link to that ESPN article that you sent the two of us in the chat for everybody if they're interested in seeing it. I have one final question, and then we do have a lot of action in the chat. So let's get to the my last question, and I'll start bringing the chat up on the screen, and then you could have a field day with that.
Okay.
All right. So first of all, this has been awesome. I have to tell you, I've enjoyed it. I hope they have. During your career, I'm sure that you've had a lot of great experiences, right? But if you had to pick one that was just like the highlight of your career, what would that be?
Highlight of my career. I mean, I have a lot of different things. I guess it depends on how you want to look at it because
What was the most exciting thing that you've ever?
Well, I mean, the most exciting production I've ever been on is probably the NBA All-Star Game, which I've done videos on my channel. It was a week-long, actually it was 7 days on site, prepping and doing broadcasts for the NBA All-Star Game in Cleveland. And it was the Twitter feed. So for 5 days, we basically, or six days, we did setup. We did a show Saturday night or Friday night, and we did a show Saturday night, or maybe it was Saturday and Sunday. I forget. Saturday, Sunday. It was weekend. So, it was the biggest production I've ever been on. I mean, there was probably 17 trucks there, I think it was. And it was, very complicated, and there was a lot of work to do. And that's why we're there so early to prep.
Right.
And I was very fortunate to be brought in on that production. I actually spent a whole week of vacation to go do it. So just because I wanted to do it, it was a lot of fun, and it was at a level I never worked at before. And
Nice.
so that was definitely my my favorite thing. I have pictures if you want to see them of some of the stuff, or you can
Sure.
check out my YouTube videos in the past. I've done a live stream about it, and I've done a pre-recorded video about it.
You want to pop up a picture too? Go ahead.
Oh yeah, let me find it real quick. So this is what I was talking about. This is the TV compound for that. So that's how many trucks there were, and they're all labeled as to who they are and what they're So this is why I think for a TV engineer it was awfully fun, because
Yeah.
these are the trucks that, like, CBS B and CBS C. I think there's CBS A. Those are the trucks that do the the big game on Sundays. Football. So, like, here's the truck that does the game that I watch every Sunday. So it was kind of
Right.
cool to actually see. Oh, that's the truck that I see their production every week, and got to meet a lot of cool people, and see different things I've never seen before. And I think if you can you take it down for a second? Let me
Sure.
go back and find the right picture. Yeah, so we can start now. So this is the first day. Basically, it was this is a view from my truck of just how many other trucks there were in the compound, and then this is just the power setup. This is like the big transformer. I mean, this is stuff that I've never seen before in my life. It was awfully cool to see this much amount of power going through stuff, and the amount of redundancy that they were doing with 4 generators on site.
Wow.
This was the view of from our podium inside, or our position inside, I should say. All the different activity. This was like on Tuesday or Wednesday of the game's not till Saturday. Actually, I think the game was on Sunday. So this is like 3 days ahead in advance, and this just all these people there setting up, just not even doing a game yet. It's just all set up.
Right. Right.
This is a pretty cool picture taken at night of just the stadium in the background and all the trucks working away. And then there was just cable feeds and cable feeds over. I think these are 12x1 muxes, I think it was. And so these are all, bringing one fiber in and splitting it out to 12 different video signals. I mean, just some of the cool stuff that you never, at least I never see. And so get to see some of the stuff. And then,
oh my God.
fiber.
Wow.
I believe this was the main truck, if I'm not mistaken. So this is what this truck was sending video feeds into the arena and sending around the compound and doing all kinds of stuff that I mean, I'm not even sure what all it was doing. So,
I'm looking under my desk right now and I don't feel bad at all. Jeez.
I mean, this is all temporary. I mean, they put this up,
Yeah.
and then they tear it down. But one thing I'd like to draw your attention to is notice how everything is labeled. I mean, these guys take the time to label every single thing so that if they have to troubleshoot something, they're not guessing. If it's middle of the game and they go, "Oh, we lost the camera," well, they know what camera. If it's camera 37 or whatever it is right there on the right hand side, they'll find it. So those are pictures of the giant generators they were using.
Wow.
And that's
Cool.
So again, those are just some kind of brief pictures. But I mean, in terms of just interesting stuff and new experiences, that by far is my favorite one that I've ever done, just because it was something that I'd never done before and may never do again.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I had a good time with this, but I think we're not going to close yet because you have a lot of questions to answer.
Okay.
I'm going to start popping them up on the stream, bring them up on the screen for you. So,
okay.
All right. Of course, Joe's making fun of me because I said, like the smash button.
Of course.
Let's see. Just scroll through. Bob Carpenter, thank you for putting up all of the content creators that are here, Bob. I appreciate that. Jay, you put on your nice shirt today.
I wear shirts like this almost every day. I did come from work, so it's not.
Again, Bob's putting up all the content creators. Let's see. Of course, again, Joe's let me have it. Just one show when I was a kid. so far back that there was only one show on television. I love it. All right. Here's a question. When did the line between IT and engineer begin to blur? When did the digital start? When did the digital start to interfere with the analog world? Bob Carpenter.
Oh, of course, Bob asked a great and pointed question. Um, well, I mean, when I was in college, which was 2001, we had, I mean, graphics were digital. We had a computer server called I think it was VR. Yeah, I think it was called the VR machine. Um, that was computer based, that would play video. Um, and I think HDTV standard was finalized in like 97. And before that, I mean, uh, SDI which was standard definition serial digital interface is a 90s standard, I think. So, I mean, digital's been around for quite a while in television. Um, I would say it wasn't until 2009 that it was really like we shut off the analog signals. We pulled the analog cabling out of the facility. Um, but fun fact, we still use analog because every device in the station that does video gets reference, and reference is still analog video. It's just a black picture, but it's still analog and it's fed to every device that needs reference, which is basically every camera, graphics machine, playout machine. They all get reference, and that's still analog. So we still use it, but yeah, I haven't really dealt with analog. I don't really know much about analog because when I entered, it was already going away. So I probably should learn more about it, but I didn't. And now I don't have to deal with it because it's almost all gone. So,
Cool. All right. Let's see. Joe asks, what is the coolest thing you've gotten to do in your TV career? I think we kind of touched on that with the last question with the NBA game, unless you want to
well, no, I
add
mean,
some more.
that's in terms of like the production. Yeah. I still remember doing my, uh, the first time I ever did a satellite shot was pretty cool. In the sat truck. I also remember when I first did, I was pretty new at the station, but I was trusted enough to do the Super Bowl and roll our breaks at the station for the Super Bowl, which is a pretty big deal at the local level, like I said. And so I remember doing that the first time and being very nervous because,
Go figure.
I mean, without getting into specifics, it's no joke to say this station will probably make 6 or 7 times their daily average, income on that day. So I mean, to bring in 7 or 8 times your average income on one day in 4 hours is a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Bob Carpenter says Jay was literally involved the first day he was born. I can hear it now. This is Radio Jay spinning the latest. I love it.
I forget I don't even know what I went by. I don't know. I don't think I just said Jay. It was like an indie rock station, which I don't listen to indie or whatever. So I just played whatever I recognized, like songs like,
Yeah.
oh, I recognize that artist, but it wasn't their popular one. I was actually locked out more often than I did a radio show, because the studios were in a campus building that got locked, and as a new DJ, I didn't have a key, so I had to rely on a manager to let me in. And my show was Saturday mornings, so most managers didn't want to wake up to let me in. So I was locked out more often than I did a radio show.
Okay, James from Unbridled Emotion says definitely enjoying the chat. Thank Jay. It's interesting. Thank you, James.
Well, thank you.
Toro says good evening. Thanks for joining, Toro. And James says just subscribe to Jay's channel. I'm enjoying this. Appreciate the way you're orchestrating this, my brother. Oh, okay. Thanks, James. Let's see. What does Joe say here? Have you met anybody famous working in this industry?
Well, I mean, growing up, watching the local news, there was certain anchors that were like, "Ooh, I want to meet him someday, or I want to meet her someday," and then to actually walk in and meet them, and then get to work with them for years and have them come to your wedding, it's pretty cool. So I did that with several anchors. Um, anyone really famous? I don't think I've met anyone like super famous. Yeah, I mean, working behind the scenes, you typically don't meet everybody. So even if I was on a big gig like the NBA All-Star game, you don't get to meet the talent. So, or anyone, you don't get to go inside the arena. So
Right.
didn't really meet anybody that way.
DJ Ware says, did you have to relocate people while the remodel was underway?
Oh, yes. So it was interesting. The one thing that COVID did good was basically teach us how to work remotely. So we were able to move people around. Some people went home and worked from home, and we occupied 3 offices upstairs that are usually conference rooms or sales rooms. We just threw computers in there on desk, and it was awfully awfully cozy there for about 3 months, for those people who had to move upstairs. So funny thing is, when they left upstairs, which is usually the sales offices, the salespeople were like, "Well, now it's quiet up here." So they kind of miss each other now.
Alonzo, thank you for joining the stream tonight. He asks, are those human scale mounts on the workstations?
Human scale mounts.
I guess
Well, the
when you
desk.
were showing the pictures of the desks with the double monitors.
Oh yeah, I don't know what mounts they actually were, but they're just double monitor extension or little brackets that we screwed on the back of the desk. I actually forget who make the furniture. I forget who that company was called.
Joe asks, what are you most excited about in the next 10 years in broadcast?
Well, I mean, I think ATSC 3 has a lot to offer in terms of uh, new opportunities. Because some of the things that the marketing people promote, like the ability to turn off and on the crawl at the bottom of the screen, or the weather alerts, or the syndicated, or not syndicated, the encrypted broadcast. So like, one of the things that I've heard talked about before is we can say, hey, you want to watch this game, pay $5 and we'll send it to you over the air, and we'll just authorize your TV. Or you know the interactive graphics, say you're watching a football game and you want to know the starting lineup, well, you can push a button on your remote control and we could offer you the starting lineup on your TV without an internet connection. I think that offers a lot of opportunity. Could be interesting to play around with and try different things. I think, not to get in the weeds, but a couple of the regional sports networks are having some financial issues, and I think it could be really interesting to see what happens if the sports bubble, as I always call it, burst, and maybe the local stations can get more of that major programming, less ESPN and more your local station doing your local sports team or high school football or whatever it is. Like, maybe, I mean, I would love to see that, where it's becomes more regional based, where less national coverage. I think it actually help, honestly.
Right.
We got to do, during COVID, we got to do a couple football games on YouTube, and that was really fun. I really enjoyed that. And it's nice to do a football game and go home and sleep in your own bed as opposed to be on the road the whole time. So I feel like with ATSC 3 and hopefully the more localness of people these days would lead to some new things in the future.
Cool. Has the FCC ever investigated the station for something said or done on the air? Is that something that they do often? Example, profanity.
Well, they definitely do it. They definitely investigate it. and they definitely find people for things. Not my station in particular, no. But I've heard it happening to other stations. I know that the Fox network was just fined for the use of the EAS squawk tones that you'll hear. We call them duck farts. But whenever there's an EAS alert, you know that
Yeah. Yeah.
you're not allowed to use that on TV. Like, you can't use the simulated sound, you can't use the real sound. And I believe somebody at Fox didn't get the memo and used it, and then therefore got fined. So that will definitely get you in trouble. As I always say, the FCC cares about three things mostly: your tower lights, your transmitter power level, and your closed captioning feed. Got to have all three working properly, otherwise you will get in trouble. Profanity is definitely the fourth one. Indecency is one, although those rules have really relaxed, and you can do a lot of things outside of safe harbor these days, which is basically is it 10 p.m., 9 p.m. slot? Like, after 10 p.m., you can do a lot more stuff than you can, in the afternoon.
Cool. James says it's great to hear all about the behind the scenes stuff that most don't even think about. Very cool. Well, thank you, James, and thank Jay for sharing all that with us. Very cool. Let's see. Well, I think we slightly touched on this when we were talking about the next gen TV, but will there ever be 4K over the air? It could be, right?
It could be.
3.0.
Somebody will. Absolutely, somebody will do it. I just don't see it happening most places, and only for special occasions is my guess. That's my opinion. That's not, anybody's sanctioned opinion. That's just my opinion based on what I know.
This isn't a question. It's just I dropped the link to the ESPN coverage of that collegiate game. I'll drop it in the video description after the stream goes off the air. Let's see what else we got. We're getting there. Doug Force says, interesting to hear the broadcaster's concerns for sure. Absolutely. By the way, Doug, I like the new logo.
That's pretty cool looking.
Yep. Let's see. Bob says this live stream is now 1 Joe unit long. I love it. Could always count on Bob.
Oh yeah, totally.
Joe says, what are the best paying positions in broadcast? He means broadcast.
Oh, being a manager is always one. Being in front of the camera is not always the highest paid positions, but more likely to be highest paid is in front of the camera than behind the camera. Being a manager is definitely the best way to get paid in TV. Or being the boss. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. All right, here you go, Jay. How expensive do you figure some of the broadcast trucks get up to in pricing full insurance replacement if it went up in flames? Let's hope it doesn't, but it could.
That has happened. If you look it up, a couple years ago, there was a truck at a football game during teardown of all times. It caught on fire and it burned. Full insurance replacement. Okay, I'm gonna guess, and this is just a guess. I've heard that the trailer alone with no equipment can cost $1 million. And then your switcher is probably, I'm gonna guess, pushing $1 million. Your router's probably getting up there. Your audio board's probably $500,000, if not more.
Wow.
If there are cameras on there, you're talking about $30,000 to $40,000 a camera plus the lens, and some of those lenses are six figures. So I would 10 $14 million, somewhere in that range is my guess, 10 to 15, depending upon the truck. I mean, if you're doing like those the trucks that I saw and I showed you in the picture, like the CBS A unit and CBS B unit, those are probably $15 million trucks. The truck that I was in, which was more of like a regional truck, not, it's a standalone truck, not part of a bigger group of trucks. It's probably more like 7 or 8 if I had to guess.
Wow.
So it kind of depends on what truck you're talking about, but yeah, I mean, I could see where you could easily spend $15 million on a truck.
I could imagine the insurance premium on just to insure those things. It's got to be like off the charts too. Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to think about too, like the engineers don't drive the trucks. So the engineers show up to a venue, the truck's already there and parked, or usually getting parked. The truck driver gets out and says, "All right, see you later." And he goes off to a hotel room and sleeps, most likely. The
Right.
engineers do the broadcast, lock it all up, they walk away. Then the truck driver comes back, hops in, drives it across country. And there may be a team of drivers involved if it's going from San Francisco to New York City or whatever it is. They may change drivers too. So there's a lot of cost that you don't think about other than just the truck. I mean, it's got to be towed by somebody, and and
Yeah.
then when do you take it out of service
True.
to go get maintained? Because it's always
Yeah,
working.
you're right. You don't think about everything that makes it possible. So, all right. James says, "Hey, buddy, thanks to you and Jay again. Truly appreciate all that was shared. Have to jump, but thoroughly enjoyed it. Well, thank you, and I appreciate you joining us tonight for this stream. Cool.
Yes, thank you for subscribing.
And Jason's Lab says, analog for the win. Still, that's I guess when you were talking about
Reference, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
It's the one use we still it's the one use we still have for it.
Practical IT with Jeremy Like. Jeremy, by the way, I love the new logo. And if you haven't seen Jeremy's midweek news, he has a new animation at the beginning of the video, which is really, really cool. So check it out. By the way, folks, make sure, let me point this way, make sure you subscribe to this guy's channel over here on my, well, your right, my left. Because he does, if you liked what he talked about tonight, he gets into more detail on his channel. So make sure you head over to TVJAY on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. I will put a link also to his channel down in the video description after the video goes off air. So anyway, have you seen anything that might trickle down to those of us doing YouTube? Good question, Jeremy.
I think that's going to trickle down. No, actually, I see a lot of broadcasters adopting things that YouTubers typically use. I mean, Black Magic has made its way into every TV station in the country in one way or another. I wouldn't trust it for my Airstream, but it's definitely in there. It's doing things. It's being used for various things. Whether that's the throwdown converters or whether it's portable DAs or distribution amplifiers, which is what we have at work. If we ever need a DA something temporarily, we have a couple of those. So I see a lot of the products making their way in to the television station. But I mean, I don't see a lot of things trickling down just because the scale we operate at, for an example, our switcher has 64 inputs and 16 outputs. It cost, I want to say, $180,000. And, that doesn't scale down very easily. Our audio board is similar pricing, similar things. It's, a Dante system with a stage box, an AES breakout box, and then the brain, little overkill for YouTubers. So I actually see it the opposite way. I think YouTuber stuff, is trickling up into TV, not the way down, not the way around. Although, like I said, we use vMix now at the station for certain things. So I mean, again, things are trickling, up into the TV world. Hopefully that answers your question.
1 second, Jay. I'm sending you just a message in the private chat.
Oh, okay. I want to say I have been watching your the Jeremy's. I've seen your midweek news now. I watch it every day or every time you post it. interesting, and lots of the stuff I don't actually know, or didn't know about. So I love that it's
Yes.
like 5 minutes and it's like boom, 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 and here you go.
Yep. Yep. I love it. All right. Let's see. Oh, never heard of Safe Harbor. Could you go into more detail? Question from Joe.
Yeah, I believe what is that? I believe it's a time period where basically there's still rules. It's just not um as strict, if you will.
Are you bringing it up? Do you want me to bring it on air? Is it something
Oh
you're?
no, it's so
Oh,
basically
okay.
the rule is from the FCC, uh indecent and profane content is prohibited from between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. as there's a reasonable risk that children may see it. So anything outside of 10, after 10 p.m. up till 6 a.m. is outside of safe harbor, which means the standards and rules about its content is different than that of what you're typically used to seeing in terms of over the air content.
Okay.
If you remember back in like the 90s, was NYPD Blue, had
My
some
favorite
quote.
show.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, it was one of them.
It pushed the boundaries at the time for what was considered decent on TV, but it aired at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
So it was allowed to do that because it was outside of safe harbor, because it assumed that kids were in bed and therefore the rules are different after 10 p.m.
Yeah, makes sense. So, all right, Jeremy. Jason's Lab says in Canada, Bill C-11 is going to hurt YouTube a lot if it goes through. I'm sorry, Jason. I'm not familiar with that, but with Bill C-11. But now that you mention it, I'll have to look that up. Practical IT. Thank you, Bob, for posting Jeremy's channel. And Jeremy says, I've been meaning to watch a dose of Buckley's take on C11. He has a video. Curious to see what his always interesting take is. Are you familiar with what he's talking about, Jay? C11?
No,
No.
never heard of
Well,
it.
no. So I think we've covered it all. Yeah. Oh, wait. Yeah. No, we've covered it all. Oh, that was Bob Carpenter on that last comment. I'm sorry. Bob said he's been meaning to watch it, not Jason. Okay.
Well, I think I got to go Google that now.
Yeah, I'm going to look that up too. So, well, we
Oh,
still got
Bob just
11.
posted something.
Did he?
He
Let's see.
said C11 is whatever.
It's designed to force
Oh.
companies like YouTube to promote Canadian content first. Interesting.
Well, that could be, yeah, very interesting.
Hmm.
Of course, I don't know what that means. That could just be a change to the algorithm where it weighs Linus Tech Tips first and then, whoever.
I'm going to have to look that up now. Now you piqued my interest, guys. So, but anyway, well, we've gotten through the chat and we've got still 12 people here, 17 likes. I want to thank you, Jay, for taking the time to do this. Again, I'm going to go back to what I said when I opened up the show about being a little kid who was always mesmerized by television production and the magic of TV. So for me, this was a very special treat. And I thank you very much for your insight and all your expertise. It's been a lot of fun. So hopefully we can do something again in the future.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, and I definitely had fun. I would just drop a little shout out or promotion, if you will, to maybe watch my YouTube stream on Monday to see how the Super Bowl went.
Yes. Yep. Any videos coming up that we should keep an eye out for?
Oh, I'm gonna do a VMix walkthrough at some point. That I did that live stream and I had some issues with it, so I'm gonna do a edited video of VMix walkthrough. And I like to get back to Rivendell, which is that radio automation.
Yep.
That actually does still pretty well on my channel, so people are definitely looking for that content. So I'm gonna try to do some more broadcast related stuff. As you mentioned, I do, I play around with Linux and virtualization and whatnot. My channel is not a tech channel. Like I'm not going to do, like that kind of stuff, but it is interesting. Some applications that you can do. So I'm trying to maybe intermix some of that more. We'll see.
I'm excited to try the even though I put it together thanks to you, the RTMP and Stunnel combination.
Oh yes.
And I've tested it and I've done some testing for you too. I still haven't actually put it into practice where I've actually done a stream where I'm going out to YouTube and out to Facebook. Because right now I think managing the comments would be a
That'd be
challenge
difficult.
coming
Yes.
in from both platforms. However, John Barker's latest version of H2R graphics he just rolled out the ability to pull in, if you use the H2R graphics, to pull in comments from multiple platforms. But it's a bit involved. So I got to play with that first. But that's definitely on my bucket list to, play with. And I guess I'll give myself a selfless plug for Saturday. I worked on a video this week on safe access parental controls using Synology SRM. So I'm real happy with the way the video turned out. So please watch it, give it a like.
Watch your video every Saturday morning.
I
Open my phone and
appreciate
go,
that.
I have a video. Let's watch.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Joe. Yep, like the stream on the way out. Appreciate that. Thanks, James. Appreciate it. All right. On that note, Jay, I'm going to say good night. Good night to everybody out there. Thank you all for being here. And good night, Jay. Thank you.
Good night.
See you next time, everyone.
See ya.